So for a decade, I avoided journalism because of the uncertainty, the low pay, the broken funding model, thinking it would get better, and of course, it didn't fix itself. So when I turned 30, I quit my job, I applied for Hong Kong residency, started journalism masters, and ended up cutting my teeth reporting freelance at the 2014 pro-democracy umbrella movement protests, which you may have seen in the news. 3 years later, we have a news platform which has raised almost $500,000 from the public. And during our last fundraiser, I was coming to work with like piles of checks on the desk from supporters. One reader sent us a winning lottery ticket. Others have thrust cash at me in public. Please don't do that. And others, we've had folks show up at the office, to donate gear, even. So, Hong Kong Free Press was founded in 2015 as a direct response to the press freedom issues in the autonomous city of Hong Kong, an ex-British colony. And it's traditionally been a hub for freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and press freedom in Greater China. We're an independent, non-profit, English-language news source with 5 full-time staff, founded to fill the gap between English and Chinese journalism and to tell the Hong Kong story to the world. But I guess in this region, it's impossible to talk about funding without also talking about politics. So in recent years, Hong Kong has seen a bit of a decline in press freedom, physical attacks on journalists, an editor literally axed in the back, book publishers kidnapped from the streets into China, the rise of self-censorship among journalists, advertising boycotts of papers critical to China, and media ownership issues as well. There's a lot of media in Hong Kong. It's still quite print-centric, and titles tend to fall on the pro-democracy to pro-Beijing spectrum. At one end, you have papers that are outright owned by the Communist Party or Chinese conglomerates or tycoons with business interests in the mainland. And there's very little on the pro-democracy side nowadays, the more liberal, progressive side. Although you have seen a blossoming of more critical Chinese digital media outlets in the years since the Occupy protests. There's also very little middle ground in terms of size. You're either, a huge news operation with 300 plus reporters perhaps, and you have a big tycoon behind you, or you're a small scrappy startup with 5-10 journalists and you get by funded by the public. We're now seeing about 1 million page views a month. 60% of us, of readers, are coming on a mobile device, and unsurprisingly, we're censored over in China, of course. We've published over 7,500 news and comment pieces in under 2 years. We have award-winning local and national reporting on issues which tend to be missed elsewhere. And we've got a lot of attention in the international media as, I suppose, like a news hook for telling the press freedom story in the city. We're now the #2 English newspaper in Hong Kong on social media, first for Facebook engagement growth, and we're on all social media networks and platforms, of course. And we measure our impact not just through traffic, but how we're picked up and cited by other media as well. We're a pretty unique workplace in that we share contacts, we rarely have deadlines, it's all quite equal, and we keep costs down by using free digital tools like Trello, WordPress, and through automation and partnerships with other media who can do things we can't. We're also very lucky that we don't have to pay for office space, which would be killer in Hong Kong, highest rents in the world. We share with a digital radio station. We're a limited by guarantee non-profit company because media aren't allowed to be charities in Hong Kong. So the pressure is off in terms of making millions. We can do our fundraising and then concentrate on the job. And we have a very simple structure. It's quite flat, and we run on a budget of about $15,000 a month, in fact. So we've done a few crowdfunding rounds, and no matter how much we ask for, we always end up raising about $75,000. In our first round, in the midst of the umbrella movement, we raised $75,000 when we were asking for 19,000. We thought it would be a much smaller thing, more of a aggregation sort of effort, but we ended up 392% funded through 740 backers, and most of them were giving $65. We had merchandise, and you could opt in to have a thank you on the website if you wanted it. But we were caught totally unawares. We were all fresh grads, but clearly our readers, wanted more, and we became the most funded, fastest funded crowdfunding campaign of anything in the city. So we operated for a month behind the scenes. The cost of setting up, as we've heard this weekend, was next to nothing. Those tools have sort of been democratized and are available to everyone. And after we did that, a couple of months later, FactWire, a similar Chinese investigative news unit, they went on to raise $500,000 US. So we thought, damn, we didn't ask for enough money. So 6 months later, we asked for $250,000, and we raised $79,000 again. And the average was about $65 US. So a year later, last winter, we learned our lesson, and we asked for $70,000 US. We promised to invest more in original reporting. We ended up raising, 74,000 and something. Again, most gave $65 US. So, but this time we dropped the merchandise except for the very high donors. We had an annual report and a transparency report so readers could see exactly where their money was going. We posted updates. We threw some money at a very slick video which paid for itself within a couple of hours. It was really worth it. And included direct appeals from our staff. And throughout all of this, we had ongoing fundraising and one-off and monthly donations, which by the end of last year had earned almost $225,000 US since we began. So we've been trying to enable a diversity of income streams in the hope that the pennies add up to pounds and pay the bills, though there is no magic bullet, and none of these things on their own are going to solve the problem. We've seen just over $90,000 US in offline donations like transfers, checks. Google Ads brings in about $1,500 US a month. Direct ads, advertorials. We got a new rate card just a month ago. I know a lot of news outlets here are reliant on advertising, and they're trying to move to a model like this with crowdfunding and monthly donations. We're trying to diversify, so we're actually getting some advertising too. Events, unlike our first speaker, have not really worked so much in Hong Kong, if only because of the lack of space and the cost of it. And we're setting up merchandise sales, Bitcoin and Flatter, very small amounts from there too. But the things that we've learned the hard way, first of all, we make it personal. We have direct appeals, as you saw, from our team. We use all platforms and all formats, especially video. We are accountable, we explain our work, we answer questions, we kill our enemies with love. So readers may not have news literacy and understand why we do what we do, but we are responsive. And we've converted some of our worst critics to donors by inviting them to the office and actually showing them what we do. We're transparent, we show carefully how we spend each cent and put out a transparency report each year. And we keep it positive. So we've had make or break fundraisers where we've been on our deathbed, but we keep it cool. And because advertisers and readers don't particularly want the gory details. They want something more inspiring. And we're smart with timing. We've learned that when to hit the accelerator and when to back off. So when we have our very big annual fundraising, we'll kind of get out of people's faces for a bit. And then when we do really good work, like covering the so-called elections a month ago, we will talk about, if you've enjoyed our coverage and our hardworking team, please think about supporting us with a one-off or monthly donation. Our next task is to nudge more readers, with 100 or so at the moment, to become regular monthly donors, and we're rolling out a new payment system to make it as easy as possible. So we want to have as many channels and for it to be as easy as possible for our readers to donate. Crowdfunding, I don't think will save the day, and I don't know how many times we can keep going back to the well, but I've some confidence that if we produce good journalism, keep the costs down, look after our team, and remain accountable and transparent, and explain how we work, we can resist commercial and political pressure and convince people to support good journalism. Thank you.